Hi, yeah, it's me again. And we're going to talk about this, which I think you guys have seen. But there's some interesting things here. And I'm not going to go heavy detail and try to keep this video short for obvious reasons. And again, this video, this channel is kind of dedicated to what God is trying to show us, right? There's enough doom and gloom. And some things are just pretty interesting and remarkable. This is a replica of the Statue of Liberty in New York. And it's the wind, very strong winds came by. God's in the wind, Satan's in the air. But that's not the interesting part. Was actually these two things here. So before people get into a panic about it, I'm going to put this link. You guys can watch this if you like. I will. Some of these are a little more in depth than others. You got this one right here. Some people have already seen this. It's not a theory. It's you got to understand how the symbolism works. Okay, you're surrounded by the occult. We'll leave it at that. It's been done over time. We forgot what that symbolism means. I've talked about it before. Okay. Anyway, so again, depending upon what your knowledge is, whether you know what this is representing, or if you're still under the delusion of what it's pretending to be. Okay, and this is very common for demons to use statues to try to get territory. They use people to do it, and people don't know what voice they're listening to, or what spirit they're listening to, so to speak. That one guy that parked there. The one time I parked there. Um, but the white car did not get damaged. I thought that was interesting. But that's not the cool part. Um, what shows you that this is God is trying to show us something. We know the old guard goes down. We'll leave it at that. The new guard steps in at some point, right? This is that for the kind of the first beast, second beast thing. When you look up this word, which is SLOK, well, you get different meanings. But there was one in particular that popped up that was kind of like on the money. Also, New York. Here you go. Has nothing to do with him. It has everything to do with what God is trying to show us. Okay? So you got your New York there. That's where the Statue of Liberty is, obviously, the original. Economic, right? And Apollo. Huh. Which is 9/11 in Revelations. And they had a king over them, which is the angel of the bottomless pit, whose name in the Hebrew tongue is abandoned. But in the Greek tongue hath his name Apollyon. 9/11. Interesting, right? Hmm. So let's you guys go through that. Again, it has nothing to do with him. It's just how symbolism works. And again, would you ever just happen to be right in front of that sign? The one that falls over. It also has the McDonald's there, which I won't get into the M thing. There's a theory with that. It's one of those things. It's going to take time to prove, but supposedly it goes to Moloch. I will leave it at that. I have no proof of that. I'll leave it there. This one is the other one that's, whoa, gets really into it, okay? And shows you some other stuff that you probably don't want to see. But again, this is just how it is. It's you're surrounded by it. We don't know what the symbolism means, and they throw it in front of your face. And again, you got 70% of people that are doing it without intent. They just think, oh, I'm being creative. I'm going to pull in mythology. They don't really get what they're listening to. That's normal. So you got a good 70% that don't even know it, and you got 30% that are doing it with intent. I couldn't tell you the difference between, it doesn't matter. God knows. So then we get into, so we got that, right? That was interesting enough. That name, if you look that name up, goes to, or if you do the abbreviation, just MSL, you get sea level. That other one, and we'll talk about that in a minute. There. It has a meaning, and it means meeting of waters. Okay. So obviously New York is surrounded by water, but there's a lot of places that are surrounded by water that could fall into that. Yeah, we'll talk about that teeth thing right here, which is 9/8. Oh, and 15. So 15, I think there's a feast attached to that number. I know it's the day right after Passover, which is Nisan, but it does go to Job. But I think it goes to a feast as well. The start of the 7-day feast of unleavened bread. So it's the 15th of Nisan is the feast of unleavened bread. Okay, so 14th is Passover. Got it. Okay. Um, that's interesting, right? See, yeah, there it is on 14. Unleavened bread. So what does unleavened bread mean? Again, I'm new to the faith. Give me a break here. I had a lot going on. You know what I'm saying? The awakening, and yeah, it's a lot being thrown at you. Which brings me to a really quick thing, which I think I got rid of. This whole Epstein thing. Those of us who have known for a long time, okay, let's do it this way. People are getting angry that there's no arrest. Well, first of all, these pictures don't mean friggin' diddly. They're not evidence, guys. But you have to understand, you got to look at it through the perspective of a normie. We have short memories, don't we? Remember 5 years ago, it was a conspiracy theory, right? The media, conspiracy theory. And what are they talking about? That's not real. And now suddenly they're demanding it. That's kind of funny in a way, isn't it? Weird how that worked out. Just stop, okay? The pictures don't prove anything at all. It's not evidence. I mean, I could go look at your Facebook page and see somebody behind you and say, oh my gosh, this person was involved in really nefarious things, and then blame you and say you were part of it. Obviously, that's BS. Like anything else, it has to go to trial. And then to me, that should be debuted and played out and shown to everybody. And then we'll see who's innocent and we'll see who's guilty. Otherwise, the pictures don't mean anything. But again, you've got to remember, step back for a second. When you went through your awakening, just understand that as it was for you to learn about like Mockingbird Media and controlled opposition and all that stuff, it was gradual and you were able to absorb it. Imagine all of that stuff being thrown at somebody at one time. And then especially when it comes to the child trafficking and what that's really about. You would break people, right? I mean, you've gone through it, you know. So you get the point there. Okay, we'll leave it there. So, I just thought that was pretty fascinating. Just, huh. It's found in the Exodus. Yeah. Which brings me to, boop, Escape from New York. Two things here are mentioned.
All bridges and waterways are mine.
That's one. And again, it's what the spirit is trying to manifest, right? Now that we're starting to understand that a little bit more, it makes perfect sense when you look at the ancient statues and stuff and how they all different cultures seem to carry over the same symbolism for certain things. It's because the same spirits that were working back then are working today. There's that. He says something, and you guys got to do some research into this. Again, I'm trying to make this as quick as possible.
There was a transmission 10 minutes ago. He identified as David 14.
So David 14, there obviously is not a David 14, but there was a Psalms 14, and there's your David 14. And 14 goes to what? Passover. Nissan. See how things are slowly kind of connecting? And then something else is said.
David 14, I'm calling air rescue. Squawk 7700, contact on...
Okay. And that is this. As he shed a demon evil spirit. It is in Deuteronomy 32:17. 32 is a big number. Reverse of that is 23. 17 is the reverse of that is 71. 17 is a duality. And they're kind of trying to tell you something, right? They sacrificed unto devils, not to God, not to gods from who they knew not, to new gods that came newly up. New gods that came newly up. That's interesting, right? There's a lot of false idol worship out there. You know, movie stars and crap like that. And that could be referring to that. We don't know. But I thought that was interesting. That would be something to look at. That's cool, the Song of Moses. Isn't that talked about in Revelations too? In the way of what people will be singing? There's something to that Song of Moses. I have to look into that. Anyway, there you go. It's like, oh, they're going to use that number. But that's what it's going to, is your Deuteronomy 32:17. So, again, the movie's called Escape from New York. You have a character named Snake. He's got the one eye patch. You know what that goes to. Not Illuminati. Go dig a little deeper. Go to the Bible for that. Bible verse, Antichrist loses an eye. Be blinded in the right eye. So when you hear people say, and I know it's AI, but they're actually correct on that. This is why you see them covering their eye all the time. Okay? You see that representation all the time. It's going to this. And people go, oh, it's Illuminati. No, it's not. No, it's not. So and it also goes to Revelation 13. So again, it's just this constant. This was what was it? Blind eye represents a false. For this as a false leader, but that's again, they would be a false leader, right? But the Antichrist is a spirit. It's been on the earth for a long time, and there's been many Antichrists throughout history. It's just people who really just are against God and God's people. The first beast gets, I think, assassinated and then people are made to worship that beast through an image is created of that beast that can talk and all this stuff. Which, yes, I see where you're saying, oh, it's going to be AI, it's going to be, and absolutely, I would not argue that against that. Or it's going to be something more ancient. We forget, when you go back and you read the story of the Exodus, when Moses threw his staff down, well, who else threw their staff down? That wasn't technology. So it could go back to something a little more barbaric. Which brings me to the final thing, and again, you guys can go through this, and I'll put the links to those videos about the Statue of Liberty, as well as anything else that I come across. But now you know about the one eye thing. Zechariah 11:17, one to look at. And I know some of this has already happened. Am I looking at the right thing? See, woe to, there's one of your woes, right? Woe to the idle shepherd that leaveth the flock. The sword shall be upon his arm and upon his right eye. His arm shall be clean and dried up, and his right eye shall be utterly darkened. So you see this representation, even with a darkening, with certain people that seem to show up with a kind of a black eye. I'm not talking about your normal people. I'm talking. You see what I'm saying? And it could very well be that. Let's see. And some of this is legit, where they just get whacked. Some of this is in the movie. I don't know, right? You got the Pope. Did Pope get in a fight? Who knows? But it's just that this stuff is so hard to prove because it just doesn't, you know what I mean? It's just one of those things that people notice it. They think it's weird. But again, most of these people don't even understand what they're doing, right? They're just being told by their whatever, hey, do this, and don't worry, it's going to Illuminati. Don't worry about it. It's all part of our little thing. It's okay. It's our little secret. But they don't understand it's actually going to this. Okay? Yeah, the flock doomed to slaughter. I don't want to get too heavy into that stuff. That stuff is very hard to prove. And is it literal? Or is it, we don't know. See, I know Saul fell on his sword. Whether that's going to what happens to, I know that the one dies and is resurrected, a fake resurrection, which is going to be in the form of that image, and that's the one that people are forced to worship. Okay, that's it in a nutshell. I would definitely look more in depth into that. Again, I'm still learning. It's a process, just like everything else. I am not a teacher. Do not come to me to teach you stuff. I'm just here to show you maybe how God's trying to show us things. Okay? And also, don't freak out about that, because if that's what that represents, then yay. Right? Bye. Bye, old guard. That have to admit, that would be kind of glorious to watch. Watching the old guard go down. I know what replaces it, but you get my point. Okay? I just thought, when that went to, I was like, really? What are the odds that it happens to fall right in front of that sign? And again, we're supposed to have eyes to see, right? I don't know what's going to happen with New York. It's in serious trouble. That a lot of it calls itself because it doesn't understand how the unseen realm works. But when you applaud a finicide, you put a statue of Ishtar on the courthouse, you're going to have a problem. And again, it's not that everybody believes in that, but you have a group there that does and has welcomed in a lot of demons because of it. And the other people are just asleep. Oh, it's just a statue. It's no big deal. Okay. You sure about that? And I was watching, was it the guy that does Monday Night Studies? He was talking about an old practice where people would have these statues or these little idols in their house, and they would communicate to their dead relatives through them. You're kind of starting to see that a little bit with technology, aren't you? Right? There's a name for that, by the way. It's almost coming to a form of necromancy. It's bad. Don't do it. You're opening up a door you don't want to open. But people go, but it's a memory. That's why Jesus says that the dead bury the dead. Nothing you can do for the dead, right? What was I going to look at? Oh.
Certificate thing. Build a bear.
Right, so open the bag then.
Open the bag. Okay.
Right, and then you need to press the hand.
The hand.
The hand. This is what we're not supposed to do. But this is what they would do in the ancient world. They would have these little figurines, and they would communicate to their loved ones, their dead loved ones, through those things, thinking they were actually talking to their aunt, their uncle, their mom, their dad, and the reality is they're talking to a demon. What I'm saying is, this is opening doors you don't open, especially to a child. People think, oh, that's wonderful, isn't that sweet? No, it isn't. And this is how the devil works. Is this starting to kind of all starting to sink in a little bit? And we're all guilty of it at some point in our lives, right? Everybody. Until you would truly understand what's happening. We don't understand the old symbolism. We don't understand how that unseen realm works. And when you start mixing this crap with AI, where now you have children asking questions and talking to this thing, my God, people, wake up. What are you doing? This is why, whether it's the story It, whether it's Stranger Things, children are the focus, right? Because they don't, because they're not being taught properly of the world and the unseen realm and about God, they get opened up to bombardment after bombardment of corruption. It's about corrupting your child, to open up doors to let something in that's going to eventually lead that child down a really dark path. And again, the person who invented it, probably not the intent, not paying attention to what spirit they're listening to. So you start mixing AI with this, which we already have that situation, and now we got a problem. We know that people get emotionally attached to stuffed animals, especially at a very young age. So you top that off with emotional attachment, you got a problem, okay? I'm not bashing the kid. They just don't know. That's why Jesus said on the cross, forgive them for they not know what they do. And that's the reality. Adults, parents, children, no, we don't. We really don't know what doors we have opened up in the past because we were young and stupid, because churches have massively filled. The reason it has progressed to this point is because of churches filling, because of pastors being light on sin, being not explaining, hey, this is how this world works. This is how this unseen realm works. This is how demons get in. They don't want to freak people out. And why did God constantly talk about Satan? Because he wants you to know your enemy, and Satan's our enemy, just like he wants you to know him. And that's how you can distinguish what spirit you're hearing. Okay? Nevertheless, this is the kind of stuff that's going on. There, and again, you get the AI mixed in. I just the right paw or whatever. I'm like, huh? Where's the mark? Right hand. Something to that, right? Needs to be a consistent thing. Okay, it says I'm going to keep this thing short. Hopefully I did keep it short. I'll trim it out. I'll put links in the description for some of these videos, and especially that one. But as you can see, it's just the constant connection. But that blew me away. I'm like, how in the world did that happen to go to that? Okie dokie. We'll see what happens. Our job is to watch, right? I mean, all we can do is pray for New York, and hopefully they wake up and understand that it is a spiritual war, and that New York is massive territory for Satan and for the demons there. And it's not going to let it go lightly. And it's going to take the body of Christ to take it back over. And the only reason it hasn't gone to complete chaos yet is because the body of Christ is still there. If it gets pushed out, which is a good potential, then you have a Sodom and Gomorrah situation. And that may be what happens to all cities. We'll leave it at that. Just thought that was fascinating. And any information you can add in there. Like I said, I'm still new to the faith, so I'm still learning. Like I said, I'm not a teacher, I'm not a prophet. But I'm getting pretty darn good at catching things. Mostly because I went through the awakening process prior. Okay, have a good one.